Amazing. So, call number three of the Crazy Good Book Club, Verb versus Noun. I thought we'd do something a little different, where I normally start us off and give a direction based on what I took from it. And I would love to invite someone else to start us off this week. Sasha's hands already. You did a physical and digital hand up, so the job's yours.
There we go. Yeah, it's funny with this one. I got really excited about tonight to be able to talk about this because the first time I read it, when I read the book previously, I was like, I don't get it. I was like, what do you mean I'm a verb? Like, it just didn't quite like hit with me yet. And then this time I read it and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And there was a couple of things that really kind of got me thinking, not necessarily like directly for me, but like society as a whole. Um, and the big thing that kind of spoke out and connected with me is with like the stereotypical like gender roles and like being like men, women, they're both nouns. And the thing that where he's put, none of them are accurate for more than 1 or 2 seconds. And where we kind of what he was talking about labels, where we say, oh, we tend to go, women are nurturing, men are this, but you aren't any of that for more than 2 seconds, as he said. And that was like, oh my god, I was like, so many things that we as women or men are trying to live up to this thing that society is telling us that we should be 24/7, and then we get so overwhelmed if we're not being that all the time, and we're trying really hard to be something that none of us actually are 24/7. And that part where he said, yeah, 1 or more 2 seconds, like it's forever changing. You can't be in that adjective or that 24/7, and that just was like, yeah, really something for me. And the thing that is, yeah, kind of sticking with your labels, like seeing yourself as a kind person or this or one or the other, again what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the negative and positive. And I actually had a conversation with a friend yesterday. We were talking about this. Um, and we said that how funny is it that people, especially with British culture, we find is that people lock onto your identity with your jobs. And when you meet somebody, the first question that comes to mind is like, oh, what do you do? And it's that same thing as like having that label, having that noun like as a position that kind of shows who you are as a person and that identity. And I really love that he's just stripped that back as like none of that really matters. Like it is just like you're a verb. You're not that identity of what you do or what people say that you are or so yeah, I really love this because at first I didn't really get it, and now it's yeah, it just all kind of opened up this time reading it.
I can see. Yeah, amazing, amazing. I love that. Um, I'll add on to that thing. What you do, it applies to who you think you are as well. And we'll get on to that, and I'll share some other stuff. But I love the. This was a bit of a grammar catch up for me. But part of the definition of noun is an idea as well, and I really like this. It points to like it. It's happening in here. It's based in thought. Who you think you are, what you think uh, your job means about you, uh,
Mm.
and that these are fixed things. And it sounds to me like you've tapped into the flexibility of this choice of this distinction.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I definitely think personally I used to struggle with that. Like, anytime that someone would be like, oh, what do you do? And I'll be like, oh, I'm a composer. Oh, so you must be anything that I know of, or what, like you must be like really fair. I'm like, well, I don't wouldn't work here. Like if I if it was, this big like movie that I was scoring, and it's kind of that again, you feel like, oh, that's my identity. Like I have to prove then that I'm matching that when actually that's not true. Um, yeah, so I think it's quite a fun one.
Hmm. Amazing. Thank you. Sean.
Hello, sir. Hello, all. Yeah, do you know what? It was really, really interesting set of sections. This one, and the one that kind of drew me in the most is kind of starting from the back, working forwards. Was that one? Stupid was a favorite adjective. And that one for me stood out because it really resonated in terms of how often the language that we use, and I noticed sort of Karen, when she was speaking before, corrected herself at the at the end of what she used to do rather than what she does. But it is really interesting how, again, that flies under the radar, and the truth of what we create ourselves as through the language, and reading that one there, saying, oh yeah, it was I did that, how stupid of me, oh God, aren't I stupid for doing that, or aren't I a dickhead, the number of times I've kind of gone, oh, you're a proper tool, obviously talking to myself. And for those who don't speak Scouse, a proper tool is somebody who's a bit of a dickhead, kind of. But it made me kind of mindful of how often we do the first person that we kind of will attach that negative descriptor to is ourselves, which again ties in a little bit with what Sasha was saying before, is that we've almost created our own ideal that we should be perfect in everything, and then as soon as we don't reach that level of perfection that we've invented, it becomes just another excuse to kind of let us say, oh God, I've done it again, or that's what I do, that's the way I am, and it's like, really. And I caught it yesterday. We had sort of folks around for dinner, and one of the people who was here kept going, oh, you must think I'm a proper idiot, or oh, if anybody's going to trip over the floor, it's me, or if anybody. And I was just like, and I said, have you noticed how often you're really kind of talking yourself down? I said, the first thing that comes out of your mouth, I said, and this is just me noticing, not kind of, not judging or anything. I said, but the first thing that you always start your conversation with is almost like an apology of yourself, or something which puts yourself down, and then you'll say something else. And they looked at me a bit funny, and because clearly it wasn't registering to them, but it was interesting to pick up on that frequency of, wow, it's interesting that all that language is around, sort of how stupid I am, or kind of, what we've chosen to do, or what we've chosen to be, or how we see ourselves through that lens, and I found that fascinating, and I really liked that particular section of it, the fact that and now Steve kind of went, well, no, it's not stupidity. Stupidity's got nothing to do with it. And then it's like, it's undisciplined, obviously in the example on the thing. So again, that for me is similar to what, or made me think about when Sasha was talking before, that the idea of, it's easy to go to something like stupid, or idiotic, or something along those lines, rather than what it actually.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. The Dalek.
Oh, I'm back in Doctor Who mode. I'm out of the TARDIS again now.
I think that's better.
Yeah. Yeah, I was only saying exterminate. It was kind of yeah, but that again, sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? I suppose that reaction to go to simplistic phrase that plays everything down, or you know, rather than the accuracy of what it is. So it's not stupidity, it's just undisciplined in that particular practice, or it's just that you haven't developed those structures and put those structures in place, or it's that you've not developed consistency of action, or, you know, which I guess at a human level makes it easier for us to accept. Oh, it's just me being stupid. Oh, I'm stupid. You know, it's almost apologetic in that sense, you know. And then, like I said, working from that chapter going the opposite way. The thing that I really liked in that first section, you must think you're something, was when Steve talks about what a verb is, because straight away that got me, because I'm like, well, yeah, clearly, you know, verbs are well cool, you know, because verbs are energy and action and movement, you know, they move, they dance, they sing. And I'm like, yeah, come on, rock on, verbs. The world needs more verbs. You know, it's one of them. And that reminded me of that phrase, don't be alert. You know, the world's got plenty of alerts. It's kind of...
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, you got me thinking that third chapter, it's interesting he uses the example of stupid, because again, and I think this came up at some point in the first two calls. It's like throw away common comments. So at some point we learn, I think we probably watch, we hear other people say it, parents at school, etc., friends. There are all of these sort of stock phrases that become knee-jerk reactions. They're second nature. And actually, when we put them under the magnifying glass, we don't realize what's actually going on. And this bit I highlighted from that third section, by being in the habit of labeling certain unwise actions and choices as stupid, Amanda had no access to getting better and eliminating these mistakes. I think it points to the sort of prison that we can create innocently and out of habit, but until we notice it, we don't realize what we've that we're blinding ourselves to something. And stupid is, it comes up all the time. I see it with guitar students. Oh, that was stupid. That was this. Like, but I've just taught you it. You've got no point of reference. You know, I've just taught you to do it, and then you bummed a note or something. It's like, it's not stupid. But by doing that, there's already that they're creating this pressure of like, I should already know this. So, well, no, otherwise you wouldn't hire a guitar teacher. And once you break it down like that, it's like, oh yeah, that's really logical. I don't know why I say that. It's like, because it's automatic. It's stock. It's a habit. Amazing. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Sean?
Well, it just occurred to me then as well. It almost becomes in some cases, it can almost become like a bit of a get out of jail card for some people. So it's kind of like, oh God, I'm stupid, you know. And it made me think about something that one of my mates had said on Facebook years ago, or well, in conversation about sort of Facebook years ago. He said, because he had some friends who would put like a post up and it'd just be like, oh, just had the worst day. And then of course loads of people go, oh, you're all right, babe, you're all right, mate, you know, and clearly the point of the post was to elicit that response. So that was kind of a, all right, yeah, it's all right, people are kind of noticing type thing. And in some cases it can be that as well, with the whole stupid word, you know. Oh, I'm a stupid. No, you're not stupid. You know, it's kind of the no, don't worry about that. It's just kind of sometimes that can be almost like a little bit of a safety net, a defense mechanism, a comfort blanket, in terms of, oh God, we do something that maybe, again, it's about saving face in some ways, and having the stupidity get out of jail card kind of goes. It lets people kind of go, no, look, no, you're not stupid. You've just never done it before, blah, blah, that kind of thing. That just kind of came up as some, in some cases. And I can think of times when I've probably done it, and you because you don't want to look, or you don't, again, it's about impression management, isn't it? You don't want to come across in a certain way, and you kind of go, oh God, sorry, that was so stupid of me. No, don't you worry, it's all right, kind of thing. And you're like, whew, got away with that one type thing, yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, just hearing you there, that was stupid, or that thing I did was stupid. Again, it's that fixed, it's a thing, right? Versus I made an error, or calling yourself out in a healthy way. It's like, that thing that went, I take responsibility for that. In that moment, my decision created said outcome. Puts more of the emphasis on what you were saying, Sash, that it's only a thing for a couple of seconds. It isn't this fixed, heavy block. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Sean. Chris?
Hey, everyone. Well, we are off to the races today, aren't we? With this excerpt. And you've all, Will and Sasha, Sean, you've already raised some really interesting points and ideas. What I loved about this when I reread it this morning, I made the connection because last week we were talking about choosing an action, a verb, right? Energy, momentum. And then we're now talking about actually embodying verbs. And so we as the science would tell us, objects in motion tend to remain in motion in physics or quantum physics. We're always regenerating. Our biochemistry, we aren't the same person 5 seconds ago because of cellular death and rebirth that we were technically. So I'm fascinated with quantum physics. So this definitely made me think of that, reading that passage this morning, those ideas, and implying motion. My 83-year-old mother, Irish Catholic mother, one of 7 women and her 7 sisters, very strong, opinionated, products of their generation. She had a saying, leopards don't change their spots. So, do me a favor, I'll be a friend for life. Do me a wrong, I will never forgive. And I'm thinking now, and this is the idea of being a noun, embodying nouns as our personality. We know that personality is not fixed, it's not permanent. But I think of Walt Whitman, I contain multitudes. And that we constantly change. Jeff and I were speaking earlier, and Jeff had a great saying to the effect that certainty is the end of evolution. And again, I love being able to think back to the science here and say, factually, it's not true. I know that our minds like to tell us it is. We like to form opinions. And I think also what we're sort of dancing around here when we talk about these verbal crutches and these little sayings and these ways we have of tearing ourselves down a little bit at a time, I remember of a term called the verbal crutch that I learned in speech class in college. Normally, they're ahs, we're uncomfortable with the silence, so we feel like we need to fill it with something. And when we feel called out or on the spot, or as if we've transgressed, or we're not sure, or we're insecure, the easiest person to pick on is ourselves. We are our own easiest target. And over time, it just becomes so habituated that it's the sure. I mean, I think that's where it comes from, because we never stop to question it. And so I think it's important to remember too that we do have the choice as to whether or not we're going to talk ourselves down, or what and this is also, the phrase "spot it, you got it." Well, I mean, if whenever there's something in my own personality that I want to change, boy, do I see it everywhere, in other people, and this is certainly one. But as I'm adjusting or trying to do that less, I find the easiest way, rather than to denigrate myself, is just to remember I can be light about it. I can have a laugh, and that is a friendly, much friendlier way of, Will, in a guitar lesson, you've taught me a concept, and I play something. If we don't have that ability to laugh at ourselves, over time, I just think it becomes hard. We dig ourselves in that hole, and then so that's those are all some things that came to mind here. I'm looking at and Sasha, when you talked about identification with your job, that's something too that in my earlier conversation with Jeff, we spoke a little bit about that too. And it's I think it is one of those cultural things that we do just because it's the default. I think it's just no one questions it. I don't think it's personal. I don't think it's because I really think that Sasha's just a film composer, and there's not a person with many, many, many different interests, inside there too. But I think these things just sort of become ingrained over time. So that's what I've got for right now. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Sharing. I love your I think it was the start of last Project Domino. I can't remember the context, if I'm honest. But we were all sharing in the big group. It wasn't in breakout rooms. And there was a particular situation I'd shared. And I saw your comment come up at the bottom, and you said, "Is there room for lightness in this?" And I remember it because that acted like a needle on a balloon that was ballooning way too much. It just punctured it. It's like I hadn't seen that. I didn't see that was available. That there's the ability to play with this and to be light about it. I can't remember what it was, but I remember the feeling I was in when I read your comment, and it was, what do I do? Oh, that diffused it. So I love that.
And that can be habituated too. It's so easy to forget that because of our brain's neutral to negative bias, right? But we can practice that. I do believe it over time. It's made a difference in my life for sure. There's a time when I need to take responsibility because I've committed a transgression somehow, or displayed poor manner or whatever, But yeah, that self-talk, man, it's powerful. It is so powerful. And then once you start to poke at it and realize, oh my God, do I say those things to myself? Would I say that to anybody else? No. That's a very sobering realization. And the good news is, as I've gotten better at being a little lighter in those moments, it starts to perpetuate and happens as my first response rather than my second. Damn it, I forgot to be light about this. You know.
Yeah, it becomes well practiced, and we'll get into that. There's a great chapter later on where he's pointing to, is this an inherent part of your personality, or is it habit? Like if you just really practiced being this way. Um, I did a gig with a drummer last August. Um, really great guy to talk to. Um, and I think we'd finished setting up and sound checking. Can't remember the context or the topic of conversation, but what he said has stuck with me. Um, if we spoke to other people the way we speak to ourselves, we'd be alone. No one would stick around for it, and it can get brutal. Um, so I love that you're pointing to that and underlining it. Um, I'd love to clarify something. You said neutral to negative bias. What do you mean by that?
My understanding is that um, uh, neuropsychological research shows that our minds, when left to wander, lean towards the ruminative. So they either, if we release control of the brain of our thoughts for a time, and I think we all, it's certainly my experience, and I don't think I'm alone, but neutral to negative thoughts will predominate. And 80% of them thoughts we were thinking yesterday. We actually have to step in and help the brain to create these new neural pathways where, and this is a lifelong practice. This is not something that we just one day you wake up and I'm good. But I think that research has actually shown that, and this is the reason that it's worth doing this work and learning to work with our minds. You know, over time it can change, but it takes nurturing and practice and conscious effort before it then can become subconscious. And when it does its thing, when the mind does its thing, we can catch it more quickly. Say, oh no. I see what you're doing there. Nice try, but you're okay. You're safe. You're safe. Thank you for, you know, thank you for reminding me of whatever it is, or for reaffirming how much you dislike this or that, but not necessary right now. We're good. We're good.
Amazing. Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, I've just seen that note from Sean. Actually, I was meant. Will asked me to share something, a Joe Dispenza video that came up on my timeline as soon as I came off the call last week, and I've just remembered that I haven't done it. And the only reason is because it's on my phone, and I've got to write down everyone's email addresses. So I will do that. I think Sean's probably already seen it, but I've already seen it. I posted it on my timeline 5 years ago. It came up as a memory, and I sent it to Will, and he goes, "Oh, share it with everyone else," because the timing of it after last week was beautiful. And I'm loving all this. I'm loving what you're saying, Chris. And I think naturally we do tend to the negative. I think that's the way. It's the survival instinct. It's the ego looking in the rearview mirror all the time. It only knows what it has happened in the past. It doesn't understand our potential. It can't see it. So I think it is a constant battle to reimagine ourselves into the positive, because there's a slight default into the negative, and that keeps us safe. And it's not a bad thing, but the whole power of creating a document that you speak into existence becomes even more essential, really, at negating the natural tendency to go a bit on the negative. And I think it's lovely to recognize that that's quite normal and that's okay. And so when we do slip, which we inevitably will, we don't have to beat ourselves up about that either. That's just, just notice that. Oh, caught myself again. Never mind. That doesn't mean anything. It's not, I don't need to make a story up about that either. It just happened. Moving on. And this wasn't what I was going to say originally, but it reminded me of my dad. He used to work in Kodak head office in the UK, and it was a big building and it was temperature controlled, and they had 2 plants in his office, and him and his mate decided to run an experiment, and these 2 plants had an equal chance of survival because of the controlled environment. And one of them, they used to say, "You're an ugly bloody plant, aren't you? Why don't you just die? You're pointless. No one likes you." And then they go past this other one and they go, "Oh, lovely plant you are." And every morning they do this to these 2 plants. And the one that was told it was ugly died after a few months. And what are we doing to ourselves? If a plant that can't speak English is dying, there must be something even more than the words, the energy behind them. I don't know what it is, but what are we doing to ourselves? Like, how much must we not realize that? Because I don't believe that any of us deep down hate ourselves. I think we hate the idea of some aspects of ourselves, but all of us want more, so we must think we deserve more. So we must love a bit about ourselves. Anyway, what I wanted to say originally was the thing that I really liked was it said that nouns have enablers that keep them in the noun state. Now, I've always had this thing that God said, "I am." He doesn't say anything else other than "I am that I am." I am the great I am. I am. There's nothing after the I am. And I always thought, and it's what I say to my clients, that anything that comes after the I am is a judgment. It's an ego. It's an idea. It's a thought. It's not necessarily true. It's a judgment. And I never really thought about it putting you in a noun or fixed state before. And I don't know, I'm just looking at it differently now. I love the fact that as soon as you've declared that, it puts you in a fixed state, which could be used for the positive if you're declaring it in your document. And we often use it negatively, aren't we? We're always saying, "Oh, I am this, I am that." But we can choose to use it positively, and it can become our new identity in a more useful way. And the other thing that I really liked was when he was talking about, sorry, I just got to find it in the book. Oh, sorry, I had it all out. Oh, he said, "I was not willing to further the myth that she was a noun." So when she said that she was not generous, he didn't even go there. He just immediately asked her what act of generosity would she like to perform so that she could move out of her static, stuck position. I like the fact that he didn't try and go there or tell us about your childhood. Why do you believe that about yourself? He just just tickled her along, got her off the stuck tracks, and then just got her into action and into possibility. And I love that. What a simple and really clever way to not even to, because he didn't even go there with the noun thing. He didn't highlight it. He didn't give it any more power by even mentioning it. He just nudged her out of it. That's how important it was. Didn't even have to explain it to her what he was doing. Just moving on. It's irrelevant. What do you want to do? And all the possibility then opened up. And then all of a sudden she realizes, oh, well, I really want to do that. Oh, I am generous. Anyway, that's it. Warbling now. I'm going to stop. I'm loving everyone's comments tonight. Loving it. Thank you.
That seemed very warble free, to be honest. That was amazing. Thank you. I've got. I'm going to talk for a while now because there's now a lot of things have started to happen in my brain. Um, I love the refusing to participate in someone else's bullshit thing, and this has become a real growth edge for me. And maybe at some point in my life I would have had to confront it anyway, but doing the training as a coach has fast forwarded that bit to like, you need to sort this out now if you're going to be, an effective coach. And I think that participating in someone's bullshit, the thing with the enablers, the adjectives, that's what he's saying. It's like the language we use to create ourselves. Those enablers are also people. And I think that they're doing it innocently, but when we validate someone's bullshit, when we play into it, when we talk to them like that's true about them, we are not actually helping them. And it is inherently a selfish act to do so. It is about us looking good. It is about us being the nice guy. And I've seen this in myself very recently, and I'm certain that I'm not the only person. It's like nodding along and going, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, tell me more about that. It's like, oh, and then I get to walk away with this nice warm glow of like, I'm such a good guy. This idea that I have about Will, what a great guy. And I'm like, ah, but it's just cheap dopamine that I've given myself. I've just given myself a cheap boost. And it is about it's going this way and not that way. And I love, yeah, I highlighted that bit and it was what I included in the email. It was the bit that jumped out the most as like, that's what a coach would do is not invalidate the experience. It's like, right now you're having some thinking and creating yourself with some language, and that's going on. That's real for you. That's a true experience. And I'm not going to invalidate that, but I'm not going to validate it as though those thoughts and that language is truth. And I think that's the art. It's like, don't invalidate the experience. But sorry, losing my train of thought. Yeah, don't validate the experience, but don't validate the story that's going on there. See beyond that thing, and it is incredible how triggering that can be for some people. And I have to say, it feels quite fun to play with this in my life and let go of this, like, oh, that's what the nice guy would do, and just kind of speak it and go, you're going to own your experience if you get triggered by something that's said, etc. Not, as Nick always says, like, don't set out to trigger people. That's not the point. It's like, but if you are trying your best to see the truth, communicate with people, from the truth of who they are or who they could be or who they're becoming. Talk to them like that person. Yeah. Sometimes that can be a bit edgy at first. So that was one thing. You said something really beautiful about deep down, we don't really hate ourselves and we do want more. There's a lot of the surface level language creation and thinking going on. And actually, I did a bit of Googling on this. I don't know if anyone else does this. I sometimes you run your fingers lightly over on your arm or something over your skin, and it's a very soothing, very relaxing physical sensation that goes on. And quite frequently, I wake myself up in the night, and I'm just sort of one of my arms is just like stroking my shoulder. This happens a lot, and to the point where I was like, Google this, but turns out it's a thing that people do. And there was a quote from an article I read. Someone's theory was like, this is kind of nice because it points to there is a subconscious tendency to take care and nurture the self that's deep down. I'm doing this in my sleep. It happened a lot last week where I'm trying to lean into the discomforts I find in my life. And so I'm waking myself up every night and I'm doing this. I'm like, oh, I'm self-soothing again. I'm doing that when I'm asleep. There's this natural tendency to like, yeah, got you. Um, so I really love that you pointed to that, Karen. And yeah, I'll leave it this. Something occurred to me that around the I am statements. So what comes after I am, and the create that's the creation bit, and that's where the choice is. Um, and it's amazing that there are socially acceptable I am statements. You go out and about, and let's say you go to the pub with some friends, and you meet a mutual friend you've never met before. Not mutual friend, you meet someone new, and they sit down and they're talking, and yeah, well, I'm really fucking awesome at this aspect of my job, and they might be talking really frankly and completely freely, and we're more likely to go, oh, that guy's a bit of a dick, though, isn't he? He's a bit full of himself. Whereas we don't bat an eyelid when someone sits there and they're like, oh, I was meant to get, I missed your drink on a round. Oh, that's so stupid of me. That's socially acceptable. Yeah, call yourself stupid, but don't call yourself amazing. Don't call yourself awesome. That triggers me. Keep calling yourself stupid though. Like, and I haven't seen this until this call. Like, there are socially acceptable levels or um, I am statements. And yeah, that's going to give me a lot to think about, Karen. So thank you.
And yeah, on top of that, when you're going to be inspired by somebody, it's the person who's speaking it out in a higher way that inspires you. It isn't the one down there that might make us feel less threatened or whatever, but they don't inspire us.
Hmm. Hmm. I imagine that how we create that person. Let's say there's the person who's down talking themselves versus the person who's stepping into their power and showing up in that way. That completely depends on the listening they have from us at any given moment in time. If
Yeah, that.
those days and we're in insecure thinking and we meet someone and they have that freedom, we're probably going to be a lot less receptive. It's that thing, isn't it? It's, what triggers you in other people is something that you either observe in yourself or you wish you had. And how triggered by assertive people, fucking control freak, not nice, far too aggressive, blah, blah. And when I'm being really honest with myself, I'm like, I let people get away with things and take advantage of me. And I wish that at the time, I wish I had a bit more of that. No, we don't do that. So, yeah. Amazing. Was there any more you wanted to add, Karen?
There was one thing I was going to say, but it might not be even particularly helpful. But I'm going to say it anyway. When I first realized this, like, you understand it theoretically, which means you don't. When I first knew it, I call it my leaves experiences. I was feeling really happy. It was between Christmas and New Year. I get this message from the council saying the green bin won't be coming for 3 weeks. So I've got to do the bin. I've got to do the bin, otherwise it won't be empty for 3 weeks. And then I start putting all the stuff in, and it's getting full. I'm going, oh no, oh no, oh no. I've gone from really happy to, oh no, it's just not. I can't get any more in the bin. And I look up at the house and I look in the cellar. I think, oh, all that stuff I've got to sort in there, and never did paint those windowsills. And then I thought, I'm overwhelmed. I wanted to kill myself. I didn't want to kill myself. I wanted to die. I thought it would be a lot easier if I died and someone else had to sort out all of that boring shit. And when I heard myself say, I am overwhelmed, that's when I woke up to it, because I heard that I am statement and I thought, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just having a few minutes of overwhelming thoughts. I was perfectly happy before. There's nothing, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not even Karen, because I was me before my parents picked a name. And then I just stood there laughing like some mad woman on her own in the driveway at how ridiculous it could be. Like we said, it's only for a few seconds, how I can be really happy, parties, to I want to die. I'm overwhelmed. I can't cope. And then back again to totally all right, just because I heard myself say I am. But anyway, that's it. Probably not relevant, but
More than relevant and rather beautiful. So thank you. Jeff.
I thought it was rather beautiful as well, Karen, actually. And a bit like you, what I'm going to start with isn't something that had in my head to begin with, but there was like a thread of things happened that took me to something which I've always admired. So it was something that, Karen, when you were talking about the plants and how does that happen? And then that took me to quantum physics from Chris, which took me to Joe Dispenza from Sean. And with the people in the room, I'm guessing you might have seen What the Bleep, a documentary, a film called What the Bleep. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Joe Dispenza is featured in it quite heavily, and my favorite ever Joe Dispenza quote, he just sits in his chair and he says, "Every morning I get up and I create my day." And there's something about quantum physics that inspires and fascinates me as well, because we don't know what we don't know. And there's just so much out there. You look at it was the plants that got me going in the first place. And I thought, oh, quantum physics, oh, Joe Dispenza. And it all sort of came together there. So that's not what I was going to talk about, but it just sort of manifested itself. So if you haven't seen What the Bleep, it's great. Couple of things that were brought to mind by the three pieces in the not a chapter, is it? The choice. The first, and then a question for you guys, if that's all right. The first thing is, my wife and I have regular conversations about labeling things and how unhelpful that is, because when we label things, they become real and they become solid, and that could be labeling ourselves or other people or things. And very often we do it because, as you said, Sean, it's the easy thing to do. We do it because, yeah, let's just stick a label on that and then we've dealt with it and move on. And my wife and I, Geetha, we have this regular conversation. Why do people label things so much? Why can't we just live with things as they are and accept them and then make decisions about them? Rather than having that sort of fixed view on things. So the labeling thing, I think Steve mentions the actual word in the little bit that we read a couple of times. So labeling is we have discussions about it regularly. Why things are labelled, because they then become immovable and fixed and more difficult to deal with. So and then the other thing for me is a question. Steve talks a lot about the discipline, and he said some people see that as a harsh word. It can be relaxed and easy or something like that, or gentle. And I just wondered what everybody else's view of the word discipline in this context, how it sat with you. I'm just curious if I can chuck that out there and go on mute and hear some people talk about that.
I'm going to jump in because I'm just about to go off. I'm not going, but I'm going, if you see what I mean. I've just recently have changed my relationship to discipline, in that I'm putting it much higher in my attention. And as a result, I do feel much more free. I feel lighter. I've always had a natural discipline anyway, so it's not something I've fought against, but I am playing with it more as a tool to create. So I may have had some shoulds about it. Should be disciplined. I'm a good girl because I do what I need to do, and I practice and I do and I whatever. And now it's, oh, how can discipline help me to do this, that, and the other? It's a slightly different relationship to it. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to fly off now.
Thank you. Yeah, great question, Jeff. Yeah, I found the bit here. For years, I had a quote up on my office wall that said, "Only the disciplined are free." It was there to remind me. My old way of thinking was that only the disciplined and neo-Nazi boring. I have had to create over the last 6 months, I would say, quite significant changes to organizational systems in my life, where things have got to the point where if I don't track things and organize my time, it could quite easily I could get double booked quite easily, and I don't want to let that happen. And going into this, I think I had a couple of coaching calls with Nick, where I had a story around discipline equals rigid, inflexible, unadaptable. And there's the other part of me that's I was seeing them. I was seeing them as separate. There's that part, and then the creative, free flowing, go with the flow, artisty sort of thing. And now I see like systems are freedom, because there's still a choice there. It's like you have chosen that you want, in my case, to do originals, to do covers bands, to train as a coach, to phase out teaching, to make more money, to do X, Y, Z, etc., to read more, to get in shape physically. You have chosen to do all of these things, and it requires you now to organize your time in a way. So there's a freedom in there. That discipline, those systems, it's rooted in choices I've made. And so I'm not a victim of a system. I'm not a victim of that discipline. And it's also reminding myself I made the system. And if I'm having one of those days and I just need to break the fucking thing, I am the master of that, and I can do that as well. So yeah, that's I think it's going to keep shifting, but that word, and yeah, I notice I also seem to have gone disciplined and systems, that those two seem very entwined at the moment. Yeah, I think there's some big shifts happening around my story with that. So thank you for asking. Quickly, I noticed, Elizabeth and Dennis, you had your hands up before Jeff. I have noted this. If we want to, anyone who wants to answer this question, and then when we're complete with that, we'll move to Elizabeth and Dennis. Yes, Chris.
So since we were talking about jazz last week, or let's just broaden that out to say musical, if not, improvising life, creativity, living creatively. Without discipline, without boundaries, we have chaos. So in a musical sense, okay, sure. I mean, we could listen to some free jazz or people jamming, like, let's just jam, let's have a jam. Okay, what are we going to play? I don't know, just start playing. Chaos. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So much of it, to me, to my ear, unlistenable. Introduce boundaries of some kind. Then we go, oh, okay, all right. Now if we're going to improvise, I know where the boundaries are. And as you were just saying, Will, if I choose to lean on them a little bit and push, even break through and come back, that's on me to choose. But So I actually find the idea of discipline quite freeing in this context. And I had to reread that passage about, neo-Nazi boredom a few times, I'll be honest, because I was like, I wasn't quite sure how to interpret that at first. But I did take his point, though. But you can talk to, some people introduce the idea of boundaries or discipline, and you'll get pushback against that because they haven't yet perhaps experienced this side of it, where you're like, no, I need to. If I'm a musician, I need chord changes. Give me the chord changes, and I'm good. We can, because then we're all heading in the same direction, as opposed to you running over there, this person running over there and backwards. So there's a natural musical analogy here that I wanted to bring up very quickly. So thank you.
Thank you. I think, Sash, did you have your hand up to talk on this?
Yeah, I think something that what you were saying, Jeff, with the question, something personally that came up. I think I didn't quite have the language of it being disciplined, undisciplined at the time, but it's definitely something that I've been working on over the last few years, where I used to was really like not very nice to myself, as, oh, you're failing, you're always doing it wrong, things like this, or again, you're being stupid. And then that transition period of kind of letting that go was at the start, I guess, like there was that sense of freedom, but also masked with like this discomfort, because it was opening up to going, oh, well, now it's actually my responsibility. I don't have any excuses now, because there's something in front of me that I can actually change, that can be molded and made and amended. And that kind of really opened up. I was like, oh shit, now I've got no excuse not to do anything with it. Okay, now I actually have to do something and move forward and actually think about this in a different way. And at the start, yeah, it did feel a bit more uncomfortable, because it was, yeah, kind of showing that ego of like, oh God, I haven't got anything to hide behind now. If I don't do it or don't take the action, that's on me. I'm the only person that's actually in my way, and I know it as well. And I think it's that difference of knowing it. And then over time, yeah, really kind of knuckling down and going, okay, looking at myself. Something that me and Will was occasionally in our coaching sessions, he'll say something and I feel uncomfortable. He'll be like, oh, I can feel there's a resistance. I'm like, no, it's good. If I feel uncomfortable, it means that I need to look at it. And I think it's that same thing with here, is that, yeah, that I think when you feel discomfort, that's that transition. Yeah, I think I didn't have that kind of language, but I like the way that he's said it in the book of, yeah, undisciplined and unwise as well. I think that's really cool.
Thank you. I think, yeah, something you were saying there's the last thing I'll say before we move on. And actually, it was a comment that Sean, you just put, discipline equals school, which is that, just to clarify, is that a story you've had? Is that a strong association that you've held?
Yeah, do you know what? It does. It's I suppose kind of growing up when I did back in the 70s, they did exist, kind of thing. Yeah, sort of that whole thing of being disciplined, in the sense of when you did something that you weren't supposed to, or you weren't kind of, you weren't being controlled in that sense, not necessarily you expressing your own self-discipline in as I think it can reflect to here in the book, but the idea of discipline being something that from an early age is imposed on us. Like you were saying, a lot of the other stuff that becomes learned behaviors and that kind of thing, actually at the same time we learn discipline because we have to go to this place and do the things that they tell us we have to do, and learn the things they want us to learn, And I think, you know, it was really interesting. I always talk to people that I kind of, especially in high school, I kind of led a couple of lives, because there was the school version of me, which kind of towed the party line and was, you know, the good boy who kind of just sat there and did his schoolwork and kind of what have you. And then when I got home, I was me, and I was expressive, and I was kind of there. So yeah, it's one of the things I've always noticed is that kind of that I almost fitted into that expectation through the discipline of the system within the school system. But then I was myself when I was out of that, and it's something that I always find interesting to notice, because people are like, I always remember some schoolmates were just like, we went to a party this one time when we were all underage to drink and stuff, you know, and some of these people who had known through school were like, "Oh my God, who are you?" They were like, "Who are you?" They were like, "We don't recognize you in school. You're kind of like, you just sit there and do your stuff." But of course, at this party, I was quite open and free, and me, you know, and it was interesting that was picked up on, almost created this two-tier system of me in that sense, the disciplined version and the, you know, this is me version. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I saw your comment. I really wanted to clarify what you meant there. Thank you. Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks. In reading this the second time today, it hit me a little bit differently. The first time I read it, it was very much around, I could identify with being a noun, or like feeling like I'm waiting for something, like something that seems like that's out of my direct, certain things that I can't exactly control, right? And then when I read it today, the phrases that kind of jumped out at me, like, you are energy, action, movement. The verb you are, you in motion, that's the real you. And then this is the part where it was like, why do we freeze ourselves into static, disconnected objects? And like, that even is an action, right? So when I was reading this today, it was like, actually, I'm a verb. I am a verb. And it's like, what I'm in the choice of it, what I'm choosing to tell myself, or like the limiting beliefs that I'm buying into, that's an action of freezing that's like making me a noun. So it's helpful for me now to think of this as like, yeah, but that's not the real me. And somehow that seems like an easier place to come from. So, yeah. Oh, Will, you're muted.
Brilliant. Thank you. I wanted to ask, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I heard you say, when you were talking about yourself in the sort of frozen, separate noun like state.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said waiting for something.
Yeah. Like and I've been talking to a friend of mine about this too. And he was like, oh, like the waiting place. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, the places you will go, the Dr. Seuss book, The Waiting Place. And so he got me The Waiting Place, and I've been reading it to my kids. And the waiting place is the place where people are waiting for like somebody else to do something. And there's so many types of waiting that you do in the waiting place. And I could really identify with that for like a certain things. but it's like, but being in the waiting place is a choice. Like I liked what you said, Chris, connecting it back to last week too. Like that's a choice.
And that's a Dr. Seuss book.
Yes.
Place.
Yep.
Interesting that there seems to be a line drawing through all of this that is sort of at this point in the call, the dots that are joining for me are like personal responsibility, discipline, that waiting for something. It is taking the fullest responsibility for ourselves. It's taking ownership and responsibility over our language. That creative agent, that creative tool, it's noticing, and I think ultimately this is the point in the book where like choice one was pointing at, by the way, there's choice. It's sort of introducing this idea of choice. Um, call two was the power of seeing and choosing. And this for me is this choice three is the introduction of how are you creating yourself? That's the question it's posing for me. That's like, how are you creating yourself in your thoughts? What thoughts are you entertaining about yourself? What language are you using to describe yourself or to enable certain beliefs you have about yourself? And ultimately taking responsibility over who we're choosing to be. Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen.
Just turn the engine off. It's freezing. I just was struck as I was listening to you how if a noun, if the adjective is I am, say I am ungenerous, let's use that one. If the adjective and that's the noun, we are, that is the noun, and the adjective is whatever, stupid, ungenerous, then if we have to think about ourselves as verbs, then the only way that we can describe ourselves accurately is by using an adverb, which means if we don't hear ourselves saying something like beautifully, quickly, slowly, something like that, then we know that we're describing ourselves as a fixed noun and not as a verb. And so I'm going to use that to notice it quicker.
I love that. So checking in, is it an adverb we're using?
Yeah, because that's how you describe. It's an adjective for a verb, isn't it? An adverb. It is the name to describe action or being.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. Well, we've got about 10 minutes or so for the official time. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add or anything that wants to be spoken? No. Okay. I've got an exercise written down. So have you all got a piece of paper and a pen? And this is something that You can definitely do throughout the rest of the week. Maybe keep this all on a piece of paper or a notebook, and we can check in at the start of next call and see what's come up. But we could spend a few minutes here just getting a head start. So it's a noticing exercise. And what I would like you to tune into and start noticing is what are your adjectives? What are the enablers that you use in your life? What adjectives do you find yourself frequently using to create yourselves? They could be I am statements that have become habits, common phrases, stock phrases that we've all learned and picked up that you use frequently. You might notice that there are certain situations you find yourself going to these and leaning on them, or certain situations where it's become habit, might be social situations, something at work. So maybe we'll do this for give you another minute or so, and then anyone who wants to share is more than welcome to. I was muted again. Great. If we put a pause on that for the last few minutes, did anything did anyone have an experience there? Did anyone notice anything that they would like to share? Chris?
You know, what's got my attention as I wrote a few adjectives out is that I'm using adjectives that on the surface may seem like virtues, but I know that I'm using them in their shadow meaning to me. So words like concerned, vigilant, and responsible sound good, but I know that those, well, let's take the word vigilant, meaning, scanning the environment, being situationally aware, all this stuff. But I know what it actually means is that I'm worrying. I'm hyper vigilant. I have that. I learned that phrase fairly recently, and 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 I seem to have an issue with that. And the responsible thing. Well, the responsible thing isn't always the joyful way to proceed. So it's interesting. Like I don't know the paradox of some of these words that I've used. I didn't expect for that to happen.
Thank you. That might be interesting to see how that progresses over the course of the week. Sash.
I've got a few, but one that I thought was interesting, the first one that came up for me, is something that's like more physical, but at the same time, I thought, oh, I wonder how that translates mentally as well, which is I am weak. So I have really weak wrists, like physically. So I struggle to like pick some. I can't pick up a frying pan, right? I can't pick up a saucepan. My wrist actually hurts from doing it. And I've been exercising and doing like core strengthening stuff. And anytime that I can't do like a part of workout, I'm like, oh, well, I'm weak anyway. So it's like, oh, it's fine. I'll just have to skip this bit, or But I thought it was interesting because also I think sometimes that when I do say that to myself, sometimes that might translate emotionally and not just physically. Like it has like multiple layers to it, of like a weakness, like elsewhere as well as like my being. Um, and then I've got one as well that's quite a personal one, which is I am selfish. Something that I was trying to like handle for a while, and I kind of it calmed down a bit, but it's been coming back up recently. So my nan's poorly and she lives far away. And we have a family group chat where everybody's, comes together and tries to help her. And I can't because I'm not local. So anytime that comes up, I immediately go, oh, I'm selfish because I'm not helping or I'm not doing enough. But at the same time, I can't do anything. I'm an hour and a half away. I can't go and pop round to her house and just make her dinner or like the rest of the family can. And recently there's been some things that are happening, so that's like popped up recently a bit more, and I thought I'd handled it, but it doesn't look like it did. It just quietened down. So yeah, those were a couple of things that kind of came to mind for me.
Amazing. So this could be a fun opportunity, and I encourage everyone to be as Chris would say, there's lightness available in this. This is it can sometimes, and I know from experience, when I've dug into what I ams am I using for myself, you write it down and then you can use it as a rod to beat yourself with, and that's not what we're going for. This is loving self-awareness, holding ourselves with loving curiosity and noticing and observing, not creating meaning, not using it as I fucking knew there was all this evidence that I would look at the evidence. Remember the chapter. So it could be fun to create or to notice some of these statements that we use, and then go back and read the chapter again. And maybe, given that it's only 4 pages, revisit it a few times over the course of the week and see what happens, see what experience we have. Is there any more that wants to be spoken? I think we're complete then. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great week. I'll see you all either in a call or on Domino or next Monday.
Thanks, Will.
Cool. Cheers, Will.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later, folks. Ta-ra.
See you all soon.
Have a lovely one.
Peace, my friends.